Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is your host, Yulia Denisuk, and today on the show, we're going European. Let me explain. So, a couple of years ago, I went to France to visit my friends who live in Paris, and we met in the south of France where we spent lazy days of sunbathing, reading, eating good food, and occasional technopop concerts at the beach. I had a couple of projects going on at the time. I was helping a brand that I loved with a newsletter, and I was writing several stories for places like BBC and FR that had hard deadlines. And every time I would bring out my laptop, I could see my French friends feeling some kind of way that I had to do it, that I prioritized work, that I had to get work done at a time which should be reserved for rest. They would say nothing and they would let me work in peace, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'm somehow doing it wrong. And I'm from Europe, but decades of living in the US have really left their imprint on me. And in the US, we are not accustomed to rest. Not only that, rest is not guaranteed in America, and it's definitely not a right because the well-being of the worker is never the priority. According to last year's report from CNBC, while the average American is lucky to get 11 vacation days from their employer each year, workers in the European Union are guaranteed at least 20 working days of paid vacation due to the European Union Working Time Directive, which passed in the early 90s. And that is really true. I sometimes feel like the dismal vacation policy in corporate America is what compelled me to leave my job all those years ago to become a freelance creator, because I couldn't imagine packing all my travels and all the countries that I wanted to see in a dismal 11 years a year. And of course, here we could dedicate a whole episode to why that is. The capitalist structure of the United States, which rewards being at the top but gives zero care for everyone else. The lack of a social safety net, the constant rise in the cost of living, and perhaps the most importantly, the feeling that we are on our own, which I think is the offshoot of the famous idea that I pulled myself up by the bootstraps, which is such an American concept. But the offshoot of that idea is that if something happens to us, there is a little help to expect. So we must work to amass resources. Now, the European notion for rest, which is really different from the US, is well known. Every August, pretty much most of Europe is out of office, and there has been a lot written on the subject, but I particularly love this excerpt from an article in the Financial Times titled, "Europeans have more time, Americans have more money. Which is better?" And the excerpt goes like this: as long as they meet the subsistence level, people in Europe choose free time over wealth creation, unlike their American counterparts who prioritize the opposite. And I remember that from my childhood as well. August was a sacred month. In that hottest time of the year, most of my friends packed in with their families and left our small town in Estonia, whether to their farm just outside of town or to the country next door. It didn't matter. We all went out for rest. Europe still does that, and America doesn't. It's perhaps no surprise then that in the latest World Happiness Rankings report, 8 out of 10 happiest countries in the world were located in Europe. I sometimes wonder if this chronic lack of rest that Americans have is related to all the other intractable problems that we have. The fact that our society feels broken, the fact that we have seemingly lost the ability to care for one another, the fact that we must work so hard just to keep up in the hamster wheel. Maybe, just maybe, if we all got some rest every August, would be a little bit kinder to each other and to ourselves the rest of the year. There is an expression in Czech language called sebelaska, and it's loosely translated as the love of self, the care of self, but it is so much more gentle and nurturing than that. It is not self-care in the way that we understand it in the West, that frankly has been co-opted by the capitalist machinery of the wellness industry. It includes everything that heals, supports, and nourishes the body, the mind, and the soul. This also means putting yourself and your needs at the center. Now, this may be especially difficult for women and for caregivers in our audience, but it's important to understand that doing this does not mean being selfish. It means taking responsibility for yourself and your resources, aka resourcing yourself, which is a concept I came up with back when I was running a membership community for newbie travel journalists. Shout out to everyone who's been a part of the circle and maybe listening right now. Resourcing yourself is also a part of being a person who engages with creativity on a consistent basis. Always working does not equal resourcing yourself. Not every day and not every hour needs to show results. And I know this is a conversation that's happening a lot on social media these days, is that idea of always contributing, always creating content, always posting, and always being on is something that we're so accustomed in the US. But this idea of always working and always being on goes absolutely against a creative cycle called create and restore. And the whole concept and the whole idea of the creative cycle is that you need time to restore yourself before you can create. If you're always creating and always trying to keep up and always being on, you're not giving yourself enough time to restore your creative capabilities and just your capabilities to go through life as a human and to show up to the best of your ability. Have you ever thought about why we are given 5 days to work and 2 days to rest? To me, that seems like a huge imbalance. And there's an interesting article from a communications firm in England that traces several major evolutions in our working history that led to this concept of 5 days of working and 5 days of rest. First of all, the hunter-gatherers during the Stone Age, 3 million years ago, worked 3 to 5 hours a day every day of the year. The laborers in imperial Rome worked for 6 hours a day, and they were working every day for half a year and resting the other half of the year, which sounds like a pretty good arrangement to me. The laborers in the 17th century worked 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. However, they were entitled to 90 rest days per year and almost 40 religious holidays. So they only ended up working about half of the year. Unskilled workers in the mid-18th century worked for 11 hours a day, 4 days a week, and they were also entitled to over 50 religious holidays a year. Factory workers in the mid-19th century worked for 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. This changed from the previous century because the 19th century welcomed, of course, the Industrial Revolution. And finally, the 5-day working week was introduced in 1908 in the United States. In 1926, Henry Ford, who was the creator of Ford cars, began shutting down his automotive factories for all of the weekends, with his staff working 8 hours a day, Monday to Friday. And then other businesses and economists followed suit, and that is where we mostly found ourselves up until today. And of course, many of us work way more than 40 hours, 5 days a week. Those of us who work or used to work in highly pressured corporate environments, I'm looking at you, Yulia, circa 2014, clock in upwards of 90 hours a week. And if we're self-employed, it's not much better. It's been a really long journey for me to break out of this mindset that always working means better results. My French friend, who we met at the top of this episode, studies the brain. And she always tells me, Yulia, it's scientifically proven that to get better results, the brain needs to rest. A Harvard Business Review article echoes her. It says, research shows that merely taking a walk, even if it's inside on a treadmill, significantly increases creativity. On a grander scale, taking time off provides an opportunity for big or innovative ideas to emerge. And the thing is that as creators, we need long, uninterrupted swaths of time to grow, to ripen ideas within us. And that time of ripening is usually not the same as hustling or being active. This is the part of resourcing yourself. If you feel like you can't really come up with any ideas for work or for projects that you want to do, or even for something that you're facing in your personal life, if you feel like you're too tired to do the things that you've always wanted to do, if you're not feeling inspired or if you're not feeling creative, it may be that you just haven't been resourcing yourself properly. We often think that doing our work, doing more of it, is what will give us our energy, our resourcing. That if we love doing something, for example, writing, coming up with ideas, doing your entrepreneurship projects, photography, whatever it is that you know at the heart of your hearts that you love doing, that we just need to keep doing it and that our resources will come. But actually, it is not the case. The energy that we get from doing stuff is temporary, and it's more like a quick hit. In the long run, if we don't figure out a way to resource ourselves, we'll get depleted, no matter how much we love what we do. And trust me on that, because there's been several times in the past several years where I've felt completely and utterly depleted. And I love my work. I love what I do. But even so, this work depletes me at times. So, how do we resource ourselves? First thing to understand is that no one, absolutely no one, is going to do it for us. No one is going to say, hey, Yulia, you look like you need a vacation. You look like you need to stop everything that you're doing and just dedicate the next couple of weeks to resourcing yourself and getting yourself recharged. We have to be our own advocate, right? We have to know when is that point for us, the point of break-in, the point of getting extremely depleted, and ideally take a vacation or take a break before we reach that point. And the second point here is that I don't know what resourcing yourself looks like for you. It may look different for different people. For me, for example, resourcing myself means reading a good book, having 0 meetings on my calendar, taking a nice long walk in the morning or in the afternoon, and just following the day wherever the day takes me and feeling like I have freedom in my day, freedom in my time to do absolutely nothing. A good question to ask yourself might be, what does resourcing myself and taking care of myself mean to me, and how will it be expressed today? Our power lies in knowing ourselves, knowing what works for us and what doesn't, knowing how we can resource ourselves when we feel depleted, and knowing how to do that consistently. So today, I want to invite you to go through the process of getting this data first, or this insight, this information on how you might be able to resource yourself. And then I want to invite you to apply it, because I feel like collectively in the past year, a lot of people have felt depleted. A lot of people have felt like they haven't really been resourcing themselves. And the sources of that are multiple. Our political climate here in the States, I would say collective climate in our planet, the terrible genocide that continues to happen in Gaza, all the other injustices that are happening around the world, all of this can weigh so much on us, and it can often feel like there is no way forward and there is nothing that we can do. But there is at least one thing that we can do, and that is we can take care of ourselves, we can resource ourselves so that we continue showing up and continue taking action on things that are important to us. So today I want to invite you to think about what is one thing that you can do today or this week or this weekend perhaps for your mind, your body, or soul. And it doesn't have to be long, right? Perhaps you don't have an opportunity to take a week-long vacation right now, or a 2 weeks vacation, or even a month-long vacation. Wow, that sounds so luxurious, right? And perhaps we even have to think about why that is, that when we hear of someone taking a month-long vacation, it feels so impossible and so luxurious and so unattainable for us, right? But again, in Europe and in a lot of other places around the world, taking a month-long vacation is not the outlier, it is the norm. There is a meme that often goes viral this time of year, and I will read it out loud for our podcast listeners. And if you're watching it on YouTube, you can see it right here. The European out of office response says, "I'm away camping for the summer. Emo again in September." And the American out of office response says, "I have left the office for 2 hours to undergo kidney surgery, but you can reach me anytime on my cell." And this meme hits me so hard every time because, of course, it's an exaggeration, but there's a lot of truth in this exaggeration as well. And since the beginning of this year, I myself have been going very hard, sitting in front of my laptop from morning to night, pitching, writing, networking, building, doing all the things that I want to accomplish. I have several ambitious projects that I'm working on at the moment, and that has taken a lot of my energy and a lot of my resourcing. And I've been doing it not only during the week, but also on the weekends. And especially as someone who works for themselves, it is so hard to resist that temptation to always be on because there is no cushion to fall back on if something goes wrong. Well, now at the end of July, I'm feeling the effects of all this work without rest. And that is one of the reasons why Going Places is signing off for the month of August. Inspired by my dear industry friend and colleague Lola Akinmaid, who takes off social media every year in August, we are going to be off with the podcast for 8 weeks and with the weekly newsletter for 5 weeks. And I look forward to that time so much because I feel like I need to resource myself and to recharge my batteries and to come back to you guys with fresh ideas, fresh interviews, fresh stories, and a show that continues to show up for you consistently every week. And in the time that I'm taking this break, I'm also going to be writing my book proposal, but hopefully not much else. So wish me luck to stick to that plan and to finish the book proposal that I have planned. I hope you find a way to get some rest this August and follow our European friends into a month of rest, into a month of relaxation. And I hope that you come back recharged, rested, and refueled in the fall because collectively we have a lot of work to do. Thank you so much for listening today, and I will see you in the next season.